Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Actually, I came here to listen to somebody else speak about Prabhupada, but I'll try to share some things with all of you. For myself, I was very, 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 very fortunate to have a lot of association with Srila Prabhupada. My first encounter actually came in 1967. It wasn't a physical encounter, however, I saw Srila Prabhupada at the first Rath Yatra festival held in San Francisco in his picture form. And again the next day I saw him again in the temple in his picture form. I didn't know at that time that he would become my guru, but in 1968 I was very fortunate to come to our temple in Seattle, which had only been open for 1 week. And 1 week earlier, Srila Prabhupada had been at that temple, and at that very moment I decided and told the devotees that I was moving into the temple and I would never leave. And here it is, 46 or 47 years later, and I'm still here because of the potency of His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. For the ISKCON Society, 1970 was a turning point where Srila Prabhupada had decided that it was time to truly become an international society. So the rumors at that time were that he was going to form a world Sankirtan party, and it would consist of 13 of his disciples. And for me, I was, thinking that it would be, those devotees that were chosen to be part of this Sankirtan party would be the most fortunate souls on the earth. And I didn't give it any more consideration, but still I was in the spirit of spreading Srila Prabhupada's movement. So I went to Chicago, and along with 2 of my friends, we started the first temple in Chicago. Our starting was very meager, but not much after we opened the temple, I got a telephone call telling me that I was one of the 13 devotees that were going to travel to India with Srila Prabhupada. And for me, I couldn't believe this, but anyway, we all had to make preparations, getting our visas, our passports, money for airfares, such as that. So we met in New York, and after some work, getting injections, at that time you needed a health card. And in that health card you had to have different shots for different countries. So India was one of the countries where you needed every shot. So normally they wanted to space the shots 1 week apart because a lot of these had some types of reaction, but we didn't have that time, so we were taking 3 shots or sometimes 4 shots a day, and most of us were quite delirious. But eventually we boarded our plane, we left from New York, and we arrived after several hours in Bombay, India. However, Srila Prabhupada at that time had left the United States from the West Coast, and he flew to Tokyo. And in Tokyo he made negotiations with Dai Nippon Insatsu. Dai in Japanese means big, Nippon is a way of saying Japan, and Insatsu means printer. So they were one of the largest printing companies in Japan, and they immediately took to Srila Prabhupada and gave him a line of credit and began printing Krishna book. So when this was negotiated, Srila Prabhupada flew from there to Calcutta, and in Calcutta he met up with Achyutananda and Jayapataka, who were at that time both brahmacharis, but he made them sannyas at that time. And negotiations for purchasing our property in Mayapur began, and after a short time we had that property where the temple is being built. Actually, the main new temple is being built on the original piece of land that we bought. All of the other land has been purchased by other means, but that one piece of land is now the original land that we had purchased. When Srila Prabhupada arrived in Bombay, it was very apparent that he became immediately very accessible. We were living in close quarters. We didn't have our own residence. We were always dependent upon generosity of Indians that were favorable towards us, or just wanted to be recognized as having the dancing white elephants staying at their homes. But the first resident we stayed at was a gentleman by the name of Kailash Sectarian. He was very kind, and the minute Srila Prabhupada got out of his car, we were all hoarded up to his quarters, and he began preaching. And this was what I noticed about him, is that his ability to speak Krishna Katha 24 hours a day was not impossible, because from early morning when we would go to his room for Mangal Arti until late at night when we would come home from doing different programs around the city, Srila Prabhupada was always preaching. Number one, preach, preach, preach. So he was setting an example for us at that time, and today that preaching spirit still exists, and devotees are continuing this preaching all over the world. As I said, being in such close quarters with Prabhupada. Many times you were called upon to perform different services for Srila Prabhupada, being his masseuse or cooking his prasadam, or being a guard, or such of these, and all of these different services I had the good fortune to perform. There are so many stories. I'll try to tell you a few that to me were significant in my life. One is how intuitive Srila Prabhupada was. He always knew exactly what every devotee was feeling and was thinking. And he would reciprocate with you in these manners. And for me, my first experience of this came on the day of my initiation. At that time, we didn't have many books, and I was very worried because I didn't consider myself very intelligent, that Srila Prabhupada would give me a very difficult name and I wouldn't be able to remember my name. So the first devotee that was called up for receiving his beads and getting initiated was Sridhar. So Sridhar later became Sridhar Swami. He was, before that, Bhakta Jahan. We were Bhaktas together. He was from Vancouver and I was from Seattle. And when he got his name, Sridhar, I was thinking, oh, that's an easy name. Things are going okay so far. But the next devotee, he was given the name Romaharshan Sutta. And I said, oh no, this is, of course we all know who that is, but at that time it was a very difficult name, and then I was a little bit disturbed. So Prabhupada called me up to get my name, and first he gave, oh, am I wearing them today? He gave me these beads and asked me what the four regulated principles were, if it was possible to follow them, and how many rounds would I chant each day. Of course, these answers I knew very easily. And then he said, your name is Gopal, G-O-P-A-L. He said, is that okay? And then I said, yes, Prabhupada. That's very, very, thank you very much. And the second time that Prabhupada showed how intuitive he was we were traveling on a train. Normally when we traveled from one function to another, at least Srila Prabhupada was provided with first class traveling accommodations. But on this particular journey, everyone was traveling third class. So today, third class coach is no longer available in India. I mean, they abandoned that many, many years back because they were such horrific conditions. Every third car would have a small toilet with a little tiny sink outside the toilet, and 90% of the time they didn't work. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada joined us, and we were all collectively in one portion of the train, and I was in charge of the prasadam, and it was mostly savories and sweets. And as we were traveling, Prabhupada told me, says, I'm hungry. So I began giving him kachoris and samosa and whatever types of sweets that I had. And he was enjoying taking them and eating them. And then he told me, now you give to all the other devotees. So I gave everybody who was there their portion of the prasadam that I had with me. And then he told me, now you eat. And so I began to eat. And then as I was eating, Prabhupada said, I want another kachori. And then I didn't know what to do because my right hand was dirty. I'd used it to eat with. Okay, after. So I was perplexed because I was thinking, if I try to run from here to the wash basin, which was 3 cars down, wash my hand and run back, it would take at least 15 minutes, and there's a possibility that there wouldn't be any water. So I didn't know what to do. I was looking this way towards where the water fountain was, and then looking at my right hand, and I didn't know what to do. And then Srila Prabhupada said, you may use your left hand. He said, sometimes the left hand is okay. And so again, he knew what I was thinking, and relieved me from that anxiety. This third incident of his knowing how I was thinking and feeling took place in 1974, which is the year that you were initiated. Yes, but we were on a morning walk, and we were walking along the bank of the Ganges, and as we were walking, many times Srila Prabhupada would be having conversation with the devotees who were with him, either philosophical or related to his mission. But this day he hadn't said anything, and as we were walking to our left in the bushes was a man doing his morning oblations, and the smell was wafting up. And on the right side was a man in his little boat, plying his boat back and forth along the bank of the river. And I was thinking, oh, Srila Prabhupada shouldn't have to smell this. We should start walking faster. And as I said earlier, Srila Prabhupada was always in the preaching mood, and he never once ever did I hear him speak one word of Prajapal. Now, if we stop this lecture within 1 minute or 2 minutes, Krishna Katha will be finished, and we'll be engaged in some mundane conversation. But with Srila Prabhupada, every word that came out of his mouth was a lesson for us, and always relevant to Krishna. But this time he began to tell us a story, and the story went like this. Near Mayapur there's a city called Krishnagar. I'm sure many of you have heard of it, and it was at one time ruled by King Krishnagar, and one of his lowly associates was Gopal Ban. And those two always had different rasas together. So on this particular day, the king was having some function at his home. This is how Prabhupada was relating the story. And he was at the door greeting his guests as they arrived, one by one, as a good host should always do. And Gopal had been traveling by bullock cart for some distance, and all through this traveling period he had to use the toilet very, very badly. But there was nowhere for him to do this, so he waited and waited and waited, and when his cart arrived at the king's house, he immediately jumped off the cart, ran past the king without saying hello or anything, went in, did his business, and then came back. And the king was a little bit upset and angry with Gopal. And he said, "Well, Gopal, how do you feel?" And Gopal says, "I feel very good after passing stool." And this made the king even more furious. But a few days later, this time the roles had been reversed. The king was in the boat, because the boatman that was on our right was also part of Srila Prabhupada's thoughts at that time. And Gopal was the boatman. And they were going hither and thither, up and down the Ganges River. And suddenly the king had to pass stool. And so he told Gopal, "Oh, Gopal, please pull over to the side. I have to do something." And Gopal said, no, not here. I know a better place. So they kept going further and further. And again the king says, "Gopal, please pull over here." And then Gopal said, "No, just a little bit further." And then finally the king couldn't wait anymore, and he demanded that Gopal pull over to the side. The king jumped out of the boat and ran into the bushes. And then when he came back, Gopal says, "How do you feel?" He says, "I feel very good after passing stool." And I'm standing behind Srila Prabhupada, and all during this story I was waiting for something spiritually significant, and I was a little bit befuddled. What's going on? I never heard Srila Prabhupada joke or tell stories such as that, and I was thinking, and I was very confused. And he turned and looked at me and he said, "The spiritual significance is very subtle in this story." And so somehow I had to take that as there was a lesson to be learned. So in this way, 3 incidences where Srila Prabhupada showed how intuitive he was. There are other stories. Everyone here knows the Malik family. Yes? You know the Malik family? They are the family that lived in front of Srila Prabhupada as a young boy. And this is where he played. And this is where he had his Rath Yatra festival. And these were his worshipable deities. So on 2 occasions we went to their home and their temple as a group. So on our first encounter, going to their home, we went and we had kirtan, and Srila Prabhupada was sitting in the Vyasasan, let's say like where I am sitting, and the family members were sitting all on the left side, and all of the devotees were sitting on the right side, but they were not sitting right next to Srila Prabhupada. They were sitting some distance from Srila Prabhupada, but for some reason I was sitting right where this young lady is sitting, next to Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada was being very cordial, and he was by age asking the well-beings of all of the Malik family members. The older ones were probably his playmates as a child, and he continued, and all of these greetings and encounters again after a long period of time were in Bengali. But he came to one gentleman who was, for me at that time, maybe middle-aged. He might have been 30, because I was only 19, so he was older. So anyway, he was asking, Prabhupada says, "Oh, how are you?" And this gentleman spoke in English, and he says, "Oh, Swamiji, I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. I have this daughter, and we can't find a husband for her, and I'm so perplexed. What can I do?" And then I'm sitting there, and in my mind is talking to me as he gestured to his daughter. I said, "No wonder you can't find a husband for her, because she was not very attractive, and a little bit overweight." And he kept going on again and again. "Oh, we've looked for so many places, and there's just no suitable man for her." And then I was going like this, "Loser," and I said, get used to it. I wasn't verbally saying this, but my mind was saying this. He says, "Get used to having her around, because she's going to be with you until she's an old lady." And then Prabhupada wanted to continue and get on with the program, but this gentleman relentlessly kept going on about how he needed to find the husband for his daughter. And so finally, when Prabhupada couldn't take his whining anymore, he held up his left hand and said, "Stop. You don't have to worry anymore. Your daughter will marry this boy." And he pointed to me. So I was, at that time I was shocked. I said, "Oh, what am I going to do?" I didn't know this woman. I didn't want to get married. And then I was thinking that I was going to have to leave everybody and live in some Bengali home that I don't speak their language. And so this story I call "Killing Two Birds with One Stone," because I'm sure Prabhupada knew again what I was thinking, and to chastise me for having such unkind thoughts about a girl who was probably very chaste and innocent, and at the same time making this guy shut up. So he stopped both things, and then the program continued. But for 3 days I was in anxiety waiting for the car to pull up to take me from Calcutta Temple to who knows where, Fortunately that never happened. So this was one story that happened at the Maulik Temple. The second happened that we had our first Rath Yatra festival in Calcutta, and everyone anticipated that Srila Prabhupada would ride on the Rath cart to the Maulik's temple where the procession would terminate. But there was some concern that threats had been made by Naxalites. Naxalites are a communist party, and so Srila Prabhupada didn't actually ride on the cart, but came by car. But someone had to volunteer to cook the feast for this procession and the members of the Maulik family, and so I was chosen. I went to their temple facilities and began cooking, and this was my first experience to use cow dung and coal and cook in a more primitive way than we were accustomed to in the West, where you just turn a switch and a flame comes and such as that. But I soon got the hang of it, but very soon I was covered in soot, and I was wearing just a gamsha because of the heat. But the preparations one by one were coming out, and I was satisfied. And my last preparation was pushpan rice. So I needed to finalize the preparation paneer, fried paneer, which I would put into the rice and mix it together in the rice. But I didn't have any paneer, and so I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know how much time I had before the procession would arrive. So I ran into the marketplace covered in soot, wearing my gamsha, and I didn't know the word paneer, so I was just yelling, cheese, cheese, cheese. And finally I saw one sweetballer who had just made some fresh paneer. However, he had just drained it once, and so it was still wet, and I bought it from him and ran back to the kitchen and began trying to squeeze the water out of the whey out of the cheese in order to press it and be able to fry it. But time ran out because the carts arrived at the temple, and Srila Prabhupada in his car also arrived at the temple and came into the temple room and continued with a big loud kirtan until finally Prabhupada began his class or his lecture and began to speak about his childhood Rath Yatras that he would hold in this very same temple. And I had no time left, so I took the cheese and I just put it in the rice and mixed it together, and then it was time to serve the feast. And of course everyone was sitting as they do in rows. Srila Prabhupada was sitting separately on a little choki and had his prasadam. And as he was eating, he said, "Who cooked this feast?" And myself, there was a pillar like this, and I was hiding behind the pillar watching what was going on. And someone said, "Gopal cooked this feast." And then he said, "Where is Gopal?" And so I came out from behind the behind the pillar, and Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, this is very good kitri." So, so I don't know if he was ridiculing me or being kind to me, because it wasn't kitri, it was supposed to be pushpan rice, but because the wet cheese had made it more of a muk, than a dry cheese. So anyway, these were two incidences that took place in the Malik's temple. There was another incident that happened, actually three incidents that happened at our first Kumbh Mela meeting. This happened, again, this was 1970, and the first occasion happened late at night, and what they did is, because it was very cold, they had two tents. They would have one smaller tent, and then there would be a larger tent they would build outside of that, so it would give it some form of insulation. So between the two tents there would be a space of about this much. And on this particular day I was Srila Prabhupada's guard, and so I was in that little space between the two tents, and it was very cold, and I was listening for any disturbances that might be going on. And outside there was a latrine that had been dug and made for Srila Prabhupada. And a dog had come by, and there was a water pot there that was meant for washing after using the latrine. And this dog broke the pot. And so I was thinking, oh, what should I do? Oh, maybe, it's middle of the night, and how am I going to find a pot in the middle of the night? And so I said, in the morning, I'll find a pot. And so, because it was cold, I pulled the blanket up closer around my neck to try to keep warm. And as soon as I did that, Srila Prabhupada got up, and he went to the latrine. And then I didn't know what to do, because when he came out there would be no water. And so I was kind of frantic, but fortunately I had my own personal lota, and it was full of water. So I quickly ran out and I stood next to the latrine, and Srila Prabhupada came out, and of course he was surprised to see one of his disciples standing next to the toilet in the middle of the night. And so I told him what had happened. Prabhupada, a dog came and broke your water pot, so that I knew there would be no water for you, so I brought you this. So he held out his hands, and I began to wash his hands, and sorry, sometimes he's emotional, but he said, "You're a good boy." So, that made me feel very good. But the next day, I was called to give Srila Prabhupada a massage, because his normal masseuse, who was Kartikeya Swami, was sick. And so I rose very early in the morning, went to the rivers and took bath and had my head shaved, and came back and had all of the paraphernalia needed to give Srila Prabhupada his massage: sandalwood oil, mustard oil, a gamsha for him, and whatever other paraphernalia normally was used. And I was early, waiting, and finally Srila Prabhupada came, and he looked at me and he said, "You are not a Brahmin?" And at that time I hadn't taken Brahminical initiation, and I said, "Oh no, what have I done? You have to be a Brahmin to massage Prabhupada." And I said, "No, I'm sorry, I'm not a Brahmin." And he says, "You will take immediately." So that was arranged afterwards. But for me, the difficult part came as when I had to give him a massage. I started with his back, or no, actually with his legs, and worked my way up his back. And he's a very frail and a tender person, and I didn't want to hurt him, so I was massaging him, not as he wanted. He kept saying, "Harder, harder," and the sun was coming up, and sweat. My head was just shaven, and sweat was rolling off of my head, and I didn't want it to drip onto Srila Prabhupada's back or onto his head, so I kept leaning back further and further, so the sweat wouldn't go on, and he kept saying, "Harder!" And then finally he says, "That's enough." And so, fortunately and unfortunately, I wasn't called back to give Srila Prabhupada a massage again. But the next encounter at Allahabad was Srila Prabhupada had received a letter from Bali Mardan. At that time, he was saying that Singapore would be a good place for preaching. And so Prabhupada was reading this letter to all of us just as we were sitting here, and there might have been as many of us as there are now here in this assembly, and he was saying, yes, Singapore would be a very good place for preaching. And so Prabhupada looked at us all and said, so who will go to Singapore? And so again, my mind is talking to me, and I'm thinking, looking at that time, more senior devotees. So at that time, if someone had joined 1 month before you, or whatever, they were senior devotees. And so I'm looking at this devotee, not a word. This devotee, nothing. And then I'm thinking, what's wrong? What's wrong with you guys? The spiritual master is asking us to do something. So then I said, I will go. And then Srila Prabhupada said, very good. You will leave immediately. So that very same day, I thought that, we would continue on the tour, we would do all of these things, maybe 6 months, 8 months, or whatever down the line, I would, eventually go to Singapore. But he said, no, you will leave immediately. So that very day, I was on a bus and then on a train on my way to Singapore. So those leelas in Singapore and Malaysia, they're different. I can explain to those later. Oh, it's okay. You want? Oh, no. Okay. Okay. But this story is perhaps my most intimate story with Srila Prabhupada. I was after going to Singapore and after going to Malaysia and after going to Indonesia and after going to Hong Kong, I was sent back to India, and I wound up in Mayapur. And at that time, the Mayapur project was just beginning. The facilities there were very austere. We slept outside. We had one hand pump that we used to get water. We had no toilets or no, any type of outdoor facilities at all. And nobody would go and stay in Mayapur. But there were 4 of us, 4 devotees. One was Jayapataka Maharaj, one was Jananivas, one was Prabhas, who was a very nice Indian devotee, and myself. We were the 4 devotees who were manning the Mayapur project. We each had a different job to do there, and we maintained, and for us we enjoyed it very much. But if any visitors came, they would come in the morning and they would leave in the afternoon because they didn't want to have to stay overnight because it was so austere. One morning after either Guru Puja or Mangal Arti, I don't remember exactly what happened, 3 cars came down Bhakti Siddhanta Road, which was very unusual because there was usually never any traffic, and these cars had flashing lights blinking on and off. So when they pulled into our property and stopped, I thought that it was probably just some local hotshot using taxpayers' money to take darshan of, the few temples that were there. And actually there was only 2 temples at that time, the Gaudiya Math and also Puri Maharaja's temple, which was next to Puri Maharaj or Sridhar, I forget which one it was, but anyways, and ours. And we had just gotten Radha Madhava deities, and so we had our deities there. But when they opened the doors and got out, these were armed police with rifles and guns. And so all 4 of us were all congregated together, and they said, we have come to arrest the Americans. And at that time, the war between East and West Pakistan was going on, and our temple was near that, not too far, and so day by day we would see so many refugees fleeing from Bangladesh back into India. But my thoughts, the other devotees, I can't say what they were thinking, but my thoughts were, Jananivas, he's safe because he's English, and Prabhas, he's safe, he's Indian. That's only me and Jai Pataka. And so when they said, they learned that there was 2 of us that were American, they said, we'll take one of you. And so I was thinking, as a child, when I was younger, 16 years old, my parents put me in a boys' prison because I was, according to the judges, incorrigible. So they couldn't control me. And that's true, because even at that young age I was on my spiritual quest. So because I had already spent 1 year in my younger age in prison, I knew what prison life would be like. And so I told them, you take me. And I didn't know that for being a spy, the prison term was 20 years to life in prison. But anyway, I was transported from our temple in Mayapur to Krishnagar, and then a prison car came connected to one of the local trains, and I was put in handcuffs and chains and transported back to Calcutta. And once in Calcutta, of course, the American embassy had been notified, and even now I'm trying to do a search to get information about this court case, and nobody knows where to go. So there's a Freedom of Information Act or somewhere that after 25 years or 30 years information is made public, so now I have to research through there. But I went to court several times, and during this time my passport had been confiscated by the Indian government, and eventually the American government proved that I wasn't a spy, but the Indian government wanted to have a pound of flesh. They didn't want to go away empty-handed. So during that time my visa had expired, and so I was sentenced to 6 months in prison for overstaying my visa. And I looked at my lawyer, and he says, tough luck, buddy, you're on your own. So his only concern was saving the name or the reputation of the US government. He didn't really care about me. So they put me in a prison car and took me to the prison where I was going to stay. And my prison cell was very, very austere. It was maybe the size of 2 of these mats, and there was no light, no fan, no electricity, no toilet, no water, no bed, no chair, nothing. So just a bucket, 1 bucket, and a clay pot with some water in it. So this was how I had to live. And I would sleep on the floor using my dhoti as a blanket and such as that. And during this time, Srila Prabhupada had been traveling around the world, and at that time he was translating the 7th canto. Who is the 7th canto about? Prahlad Maharaj, yes. So he was doing this type of translation, and I was in prison. Eventually, I woke up one afternoon, and there were several dignified Bengali gentlemen with nice starched white dhotis standing around me, and I received a government pardon, so I didn't have to do the full 6 months. And they told me that within 3 days you will be released from prison. And so I was waiting for that time, and on the day that I was released, I took a bus back to Calcutta Temple, and Srila Prabhupada was there at that time. And so immediately he called me into his room. He was eating his lunch at that time, and first he asked me, "Are you okay?" And then I said, "Yes, Prabhupada, I'm okay." And he says, "Do you want to go back to America?" And I said, "No. I want to go back to Mayapur." So anyway, this made Prabhupada very pleased, and he began to tell me a story. He says, "Yes, once there was this boy, a young boy, and he was also a devotee of Krishna, and he had a very wicked father, and his father was envious because this boy loved Krishna more than he loved his father, and he tried so many ways to dissuade him from giving any more of his affection to this Krishna by giving examples of locking him up, giving him poison, having snakes, elephants, all sorts of different ways to get rid of his son." And then, of course, all this time I knew, that he's speaking about Prahlad Maharaj. And then finally Prabhupada banged his fist on the table and said, "Krishna's devotees will go to hell." To do service. So I said, "Thank you, Prabhupada." Yes, and I said, "I will go to Mayapur now." So I think we're... Taking your time.
Just pick up that microphone because she never sits in front of the microphone. Pick up the remote this one and give it to Mother Krishna.
Perhaps on another day I can tell more stories, but
You're leaving, please.
yeah, no, you say something. I came to hear you speak, so.
Me too. And just see, I made some kachori. I'm so tired.
Kachoris are Srila Prabhupada's favorite, so by making these kachoris, you have made Srila Prabhupada very happy.
It's incredible because you were saying that Prabhupada.
Especially if they're Urd dal kachoris.
Pardon?
If they're Urd dal.
No. Those are not Urd. Those are the ones he wanted here. We sent
Use
to
the
the
microphone.
Moondal.
Yes.
Huh? The Moondal. and asafoetida,
Yes,
and some chili.
yes.
Yeah, like this.
He likes like that also.
Yeah. And he was just saying that he was telling you I want some kachori.
Yes.
So that's not hazard,
No.
you see?
Kachoris were Srila Prabhupada's
Yeah.
request always.
It's difficult for me to speak after you because could you tell one more story, please? You are here tomorrow?
No, he's here, he's here.
I have many more, so
He's not going
I'd like to hear something.
So what?
Anything that you say about
Okay,
Srila
I
Prabhupada's
will-
nectar.
I will say something after you because you were speaking about your initiation and that Prabhupada know the mind of the devotees. So I will say a funny story. But maybe devotees heard it already. But
No,
it's
not
okay.
only people. just-
Okay, and I speak for you.
Thank you.
So, I was in Amsterdam, and well, we really didn't know anything, and we had the little Sri Upanishad and Krishna books came, and I was so ignorant of everything in the spiritual life, but I was very much searching for it also.
Where were you?
And also my father put me in very strict school because they could not manage me. So anyway, I wanted to be initiated by Srila Prabhupada, and well, I am a person that my mother used to say that even when you was very small, if we want you to do something that you did not want, you will rather die. It was impossible. So I thought, I really want to be initiated by Srila Prabhupada. I don't want to be initiated by letters. Not that I think that to be initiated by letters is something less valuable. No, just I was feeling that I had like a gift in my heart, you know, but it was, I could not open it. Somewhere I knew that I was going to be very close to Srila Prabhupada, but at the same time I was thinking also with my mind, but it's not possible. Not me. I am so nothing. I'm so, you know, it's, so I would not want to think about, but it was there, like a gift that you cannot open. Well, so so I stayed about 9 months, 10 months, doing so much service in Amsterdam temple. Then in Jaya, you know, the husband of Gopala, he welcomed me. And when devotees asked me, when did you meet Srila Prabhupada? How did you meet Srila Prabhupada? And where? I always say, and it's true, I met Srila Prabhupada the first time in the heart of a devotee. From the heart of a devotee. It's very, very important, actually. That devotee, he was so merciful. And he was so full of Srila Prabhupada that it was very contagious. Everything was Srila Prabhupada said, Srila Prabhupada does like this, Srila Prabhupada, everything. That's why maybe we did not feel so much the urge of the material energy at that time, because we were full of Srila Prabhupada. So that I always say, don't think that we was not serving in separation, because Srila Prabhupada was coming and going. So we were serving in preparation and separation. And when he was going, it was so painful that we had immediately it was so funny to find a way to say, oh, we're going to do this, to do that. Like that Prabhupada is coming back. We will think that he is coming back tomorrow. Otherwise, we will not be able, we will maybe get so depressed or you know, like this. You will find devotees when he was living, sometimes just sobbing on the ground. But immediately, as we start to speak of service, Srila Prabhupada was rising in our heart. And then we started to want to preach, to go in our life. Before our initiation, I was cooking for about, it was many hippies at that time. I came to the temple in end of 1969, and then so it was so many hippies. I was in India before with Swami. We had gone to India, and we came, and everybody said we were hippies, but we did not even know. We left for India in 1965. I wanted so much to look for spiritual master. So I'm not speaking in order, please excuse me, but just to say that Surabi, he was Hans at that time. He wanted to become very rich, and we went through Kuwait. He did not want to go to India, and I was not saying so much. He actually wanted to stay in Kuwait. He was a young architect, because he made this temple, you know, and well, Srila Prabhupada made, but he was doing it. So he wanted very much to become very rich and build palaces for the sheikhs of Kuwait. And I was saying, you want to become very rich? So every day I was saying, let's go to India, let's go to India. He was saying, you are totally crazy, you are totally crazy. In India, they have nothing to eat, and you said I'm going to be rich there. So I was saying, yes, but they are rich in the heart. Everything is there. So finally, we go to India. I just say that because you see, after a few years later, he actually constructed this temple, Jew temple, all this, and 2 rupees a day we had to eat. 2 rupees. And we could not take rickshaw. Prabhupada said 25 paisa. Your legs are free. This is public money. And he knew that boys and girls were distributing books. So he was very concerned about the donation, that it comes either for life member or for devotees. Of course, he always cared more for his devotees. He was caring very much for us, always in anxiety.